us growing up in the city, so many of us get stuck on our block and don't know what it is to get off the block. Well, you know what? The US is a block too.
Mm.
And we need to venture off, venture out, and see what this world is all about. We need to, like, I've met so many friends who they they were taught that part back in high school and in college where they did international travel while in college. Did an exchange program, and I didn't even hear that until I done met people in my 30s who talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
So for younger folk and for older, please get your visa, get your coins together, travel outside the US. Now, it's a great
Malik's First Job Podcast, here to answer any questions that y'all ask. Financial literacy and resources, parents and young people becoming bosses, CEOs, future leaders, entrepreneurs, conferences and boardrooms getting sponsors secured. If you want generational wealth, Brooklyn's own Kerwin Phillip with information to help. Malik's First Job Podcast, Malik's Podcast, Brooklyn's own Kerwin Phillip, Kerwin Phillip. Malik's First Job Podcast, Brooklyn's own Kerwin Phillip. Generational wealth.
Hey, peace, everyone. How you doing? This is Kerwin Phillip with another episode of the Malik's First Job Podcast, where we discuss leadership, entrepreneurship, and financial literacy for parents and teens. Today, we have a great guest. It's a brother that I knew from high school. We recently reconnected, like last week, and we're just kind of sharing, what we've been doing since we last spoke. I think the last time we got a chance to speak was like high school, and it's been like almost 20 some odd, over 20 some odd years, and so this recently reconnecting and hearing his story and what he's up to. I'm like, this is something that my audience needs to hear. So just want to have him share his story, share his experience, and just to kind of open up, some conversation and open up, people's viewpoints. Because oftentimes, when we raise our children, they have like a limited view of the world. They think that the neighborhood or their block is the world, but the world is a very big place, and we have a young man, that I'm going to introduce you all today that went from beyond his neighborhood in Harlem and is now living overseas in Japan, and just want to hear that story. What's that experience, being African American living overseas in a foreign country. So let me introduce to you my man. Again, we go way back to high school, back when I was dunking on him in the gym, right? Right.
You was the big man, dog. You were a serious force on the football field, and you were definitely a force in the paint, But I was a guard, so you knew where to stay.
Yeah. Nah, my man was doing this thing in the basketball court back in the day, man. My lane was football. This brother's lane was basketball. He was doing this thing. But let me introduce you to my good friend, O'Neal Irvin. O'Neal, if you want to get some background on yourself, let's tell my audience who you are.
Yeah. Well, we went to high school together, and very good friend of mine, very dear friend of mine. We played on the football team our freshman year, and would have loved to continue playing football, but parents was heavy-handed on me not wanting to pursue that, which broke my heart. But I continued to play basketball, and after Xavier, wanted a different experience than what we had experienced at school.
Right.
And so went to Howard University and
HBCU.
lived in the, yes, sir. And lived in the DC area for almost 20 years.
Right.
Then so one of my friends who went to Howard with me, he discovered a teaching program called the JET program.
Okay.
He discovered it, applied, came out, and basically what the program did was it extracted those who wanted to teach abroad, particularly in Japan, gave them an opportunity to do so. So for years, he had been telling me about his experience in Japan. And so in 2012,
Okay.
I came out and visited for about 2 weeks, loved the food, loved the experience. And I was like, you know what? I had went through a couple of life changes, and so it was perfect timing for me to give it a try. And so from 2012 to 2014, just did a lot of prep to come out here. And then in 2014 came out, and I said to myself, if I didn't care for it, give myself 3 years. If I enjoy it, stay at least 5.
Right.
But it's been such a blessing for me being here that it's lasted now 8 years. And so
Wow.
it's been great. And since high school, actually during high school was the first time I started having teaching experiences. So I've been off and on teaching for a very long time.
Right.
Even though there was a portion of my working career where I was a paralegal for some time, but I've been teaching for a very long time. And so coming out here, actually just before I came out here, I was almost burnt out from teaching.
Okay.
And so the opportunity to come out here and to see what that's like, I was like, okay, this is it. This is the last straw. And I chose an environment that I didn't have too much experience with. I did elementary, junior high, and high school,
Right.
but I didn't really do preschool. And
Okay.
doing preschool for the first time, for real, it did wonders for me, wonders.
Okay.
And I've really enjoyed my time here. It's been great. It's been great. So please feel free to ask me whatever, however. You know.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So when you went to Howard, what was your major? Like, what was your degree in?
So initially, it was accounting.
Okay.
And that was weird because it was like I didn't really understand what accounting was, but it was in business, and I
Right.
was like, I had an entrepreneurial spirit back then, still do now, but I actually had a good friend of mine who took accounting, and I was always good at math, so I was like, oh, let me take accounting. But secretly, I had a love for teaching because I really enjoyed that, and I had a love for law.
Okay.
So changed my major from accounting to, they didn't have a pre-law program at Howard. So at the
Okay.
time they had um, one of the 2 majors that they had that you could venture into to explore legal studies was called legal communication.
Okay.
So I took on legal communication in elementary education. And
Okay.
so there you have it.
Right.
And so,
Right. Right.
but yeah, so accounting, when I took accounting, I didn't realize it was mainly concepts. I thought it was more math based, and
Yeah.
I really wasn't doing that well. And
Okay.
at the same time, I was, one of the classes that was a requirement for me to take was speech,
Right.
and speech was under the legal communications major.
Mm-hmm.
And in me taking speech, my teacher and the chairman of that department, they just took to me and they was like, they were really trying to get me to come in, change majors. And because
Okay.
I wasn't doing well in accounting and
Mhm.
I expressed my love for the law and they saw something in me with the way that I could speak, I made the transfer and everything just changed really,
Okay.
really well. So, yeah.
That's what's up. That's what's up. So now you mentioned that you learned about the program, the JET program, and you came and you visited Japan for a couple weeks and decided that's where you wanted to go. And you spoke about doing some prep before you made that final move, right? Can you
Hmm.
speak about what that prep entailed?
Sure. Um, I was living in DC for roughly 20 years.
Hmm.
Um, I had gotten married and then I had gotten divorced. And so when I got divorced, my father was a widow. So I moved back to New York to support him while I was also, you know, going through the trials of a divorce.
Hmm.
So when I came out to visit Japan and it felt good to decide to come out here, I wanted to make sure one that I set up a system to support my father, knowing
Okay.
that I wouldn't be there on a regular basis. Make
Right.
sure that family and friends that have known him throughout the years, that I could be able to call upon them to assist him. Not that he had bad health or anything, but you just never know.
Right.
And then also, I wanted to take a couple of classes um, to learn Japanese. And
Okay.
so I took two classes. One was was a Japanese teacher who lived in America primarily his whole life. So the
Hmm.
class was in mostly English, and he was teaching us a couple of things, which was helpful. But the second class that I took, at literally at the same time, it was like the teacher just came from Japan and
Okay.
really didn't know too much English at all. So the
Wow.
class was done entirely in Japanese, which was it was a shock. It was everybody in the class. It was about a good 13 of us, and we were like, we don't understand what he's saying at all, and he can't
Wow.
speak English. But
Wow.
it was a really great experience, and by the time that both those classes had ended, I had a decent foundation on
Hmm.
the language, but and actually I was starting to formulate sentences in Japanese. But when I came to Japan, uh, I lived primarily in an English environment. So the people I lived with, which was my boy from college, I lived
Hmm.
with him and his wife and his son. All they did was speak English.
Okay.
And the job that I ended up getting primarily taught English. So I was never really forced to have to use Japanese. And so the
Okay.
Japanese that I had acquired just kind of started to slip. And so uh, currently now I can get by.
Okay.
If I have like if you were to come out and visit me,
Hmm.
I know enough of what to say to have a very smooth and enjoyable experience. But as far as having full blown conversation, dialogue, mm-mm, no. It
Okay.
actually took me almost 4 to 5 years just to start hearing the words
Okay.
because a lot of it was just wah 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 wah.
Right.
I couldn't catch it, you know. But now, like I said, I've been here 8. It was just a few years ago that I actually started hearing the words. So I'm able to grasp on a little bit better, and
Right.
learning phrases, on a daily basis. So it's not so bad.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
do you get a chance like to venture out often and like go in like town and
Yeah. So when I moved here in 2014, I lived on the countryside,
okay.
and the place was called Gifu. And so here in Japan, they have prefectures, which in a way it's like prefectures of states.
Okay.
So I lived in Gifu, which is its own prefecture, but then I my job was in Aichi prefecture, which neighbors Gifu. And
Okay.
so my commute was roughly 2 hours going and coming. So
Oh wow.
take me 2 hours to get to work, take me 2 hours to get back home. And eventually, and when I say I lived in the countryside, all you saw was rice fields and fields where they grew, fruits and
hmm
certain vegetables and stuff. So it was very, very rural.
Okay.
But um, I lived in Gifu for a year, and then I moved into Nagoya City, which was like the big, it's like one of the maybe third or fourth largest city in Japan.
Okay.
I know it was that. It could have moved up or moved down, but it's a very uh, populated city next next to Osaka, Yokohama, and Tokyo. So,
Okay.
um, yeah, so lived in the city, and you get opportunities based off work to travel. So I've been to Tokyo many times, been to Osaka many times.
hmm
I've had friends from the States come and visit.
Right.
So usually in trying to find out what they want to do, I usually take them to Kyoto, because Kyoto um, is old Japan. Like many of the architecture you would see there is stuff that you would find in movies.
Okay.
And it's kind of like so the city that I live in is Nagoya, and it looks very modern and everything, but you go to Kyoto, there's so many spots there that's just traditional old school Japan, and
Well.
it's extremely beautiful. So I usually take people there, but I've had opportunities to travel throughout the country. There's more places I would like to see,
Right.
and just as I was planning to do that, COVID hit. But
Right.
you know, um, I have had chances to venture out from the city that I was living in and
Okay.
worked at. So.
Okay. And now, how do you normally get around? Is like public transportation, or do you drive?
Mhm. So when I was living in the countryside, you had to pretty much use a bike. Either
Oh
you had a
wow.
bike, you had a car, and then they have a pretty reliable train system here and bus system. So I would ride a bike almost 30 minutes to the train station. Then it was about an hour and a half, maybe about an hour ride on the train,
hmm
and then a 30-minute walk from the train station to my school. But when I moved to Nagoya, uh, my travel time shrunk in half.
Okay.
So I take a bus, takes me 10 minutes to the station. Then I take a train, that's about 15-20 minutes. And then the 20-30 minute walk from the train station to my school.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Okay.
yeah, but it's very, very reliable train system, bus system. Most times is um, it's on time, and particularly with the train. If the trains are delayed in any way,
hmm
when you get out at the train station, they usually have like a slip that you can take into your job, letting
Okay.
them know that your train was delayed.
Oh
So,
wow.
please excuse you for excuse me for being late, but it was due to the train. So it's
Wow.
systematic. You'll get it as
Okay.
soon as you get off the train. And so,
Now, imagine having that in New York. They be passing out so many slips.
man, I can't even imagine, just because, you know, we hustle everything. So I can imagine there's the system that's present, and then there's the system that's,
Yeah.
created to
Right.
assist however you want to work that,
Yeah, be like, yo, son, I got that
So
slip for you for work.
yeah, yeah,
You know.
yeah.
So I guess outside, at that point. So I guess comparable to like, you said it's like reliable. New York is pretty reliable as well.
Hmm.
Even though it has its moments. How would
Right.
you compare both systems? New York versus the Japanese public
Well,
transportation.
clearly home is much more vast,
Okay.
just in terms of the neighborhoods that it hits,
Hmm.
and how widespread it is. The rail system here is pretty good. They got like three major train systems, and then they
Okay.
have what's called a bullet train, which is high speed rail,
Hmm.
which is phenomenal. I could spend a good time talking about that. But
Yeah.
clean
Yeah.
is extremely clean here. Like like I've heard stories, and I don't know how true it is, but I wouldn't be surprised. Like they shut. It's not 24 hours.
Okay.
So public transportation is not 24 hours, so it does shut down at a certain time. But I've
Hmm.
heard that pretty much when the train system shut down, there's a cleaning crew that goes through and they're scrubbing, to make sure that the train systems are clean, train
Right.
stations are clean. So that's one glaring difference.
Hmm.
Um, Another is, like, I don't know what it's like at home now, but for many stations, they have a grid that shows you when the next train is coming, what time it's coming.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and it's like I said, for most times, it's pretty on point and on time.
Yeah.
When it's not, it's usually because, unfortunately, someone has killed themselves or jumped in front of
Wow.
the tracks. And
Wow.
suicide is pretty big here,
Mm.
um, which I didn't know coming in, but yeah, suicide's pretty big here. So oftentimes when there's a delay,
Hmm.
I would say it's probably because someone jumped in front of the tracks. You know,
Now, is there a reason as to why that's so high over there?
my guess is that um, folk here are taught to endure your situations that you're going through,
Hmm.
and so I don't believe that there's a great system to assist those with mental health.
Okay.
So a lot of people are sleep deprived here.
Okay.
People work. It's extremely common for people to work 6, if not 7 days a week.
Hmm.
You can't just call off work like you could at home
Wow.
and it be comfortable or be cool. No, it's not like that at all. And a lot of times people are working 12, 13, 14 hours a day.
Wow.
So to work that long of a day, then and then also 6, 7 days a week,
Hmm.
so work-life balance is a huge problem here.
Wow.
Huge, because people tend to spend more time at work than they do at home.
Mm.
And so I think that plays the biggest reason as to why. the suicide rate is pretty high. And then also, um, I want to be sensitive to how I want to. I want to say this the right way, but it's like we back home, we question things, and we're into conversing and talking, and we will talk about things that are personal, things that you're going through,
Mm-hmm.
um, to give solutions and suggestions and stuff like that.
Right.
From my experience, Japanese don't really communicate in that way.
Okay.
A lot of their stuff is very surface, um, and oftentimes, I really believe that people don't know how to engage. Okay, your friend is going through a rough time at work. How
Mm-hmm.
can you properly assist them? What can you say to either make them feel better or provide solutions? Because I don't think that kind of talk is common here or
Mm-hmm.
fostered like that.
Right.
You have a lot of people who are just isolated. Um, they feel like there's no one they can talk to, let alone get the solutions that they need. And,
Mm-hmm.
pressure bust pipes. You deal
Yeah.
with that long enough,
True.
something's going to give.
Right.
And so I think the work-life balance issues, as well as the way they communicate, I think it plays a big factor into why suicide is so high. You
Wow.
know, there's
Wow.
there's there's a big thing on society. There's certain societal pressures that they give, particularly from Japanese to Japanese. There's pressures on women to get married at a certain age, and if they don't, their likelihood to get married is slim to none.
Okay.
And if you have a daughter and she ends up getting to a certain age and she's not married, I've heard like there's some form of shame that gets placed on the family.
Wow.
So there's pressures on women to get married at a certain age, and then um and I think on some level, from Japanese to Japanese, they've learned how to deal with it, or at least push through. Not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily deal with it, but they push through. And it's kind of like, well, my parents did it, my grandparents did it, so I must do it. But
Okay.
unfortunately, I don't think that they ever truly figure out what's a better way of handling life and the certain struggles of life to make it overall better for yourself instead of
Mm-hmm.
just going through the motions,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say as to why the suicide
Okay.
rate is pretty high.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I guess what has I guess how did the people there receive you once you get there? Like being a brother, I'm sure you stand out. When you
Yeah.
go out, right?
Yeah.
So what how and I guess when you go out and how is the overall reception to you being there?
I I am one of those that would say my experience has been 85, 90% extraordinarily positive.
Okay.
There are some who go through a, it's just way more challenging for them.
Okay.
Um, so there's how I want to put it. You can fall in different pockets as
Mm-hmm.
to your level of success socially here. When I
Okay.
got here, I mean, one experiment that I played with myself was more like, okay, I want to see how many black people, like I want to see how long it takes me to count to 100 black people I've seen.
Okay.
And it took me a year almost a year to get to 100.
Wow.
That's including men, women, and kids. It took a very long time. And so you'll find a lot of blacks from the motherland here.
Okay.
There's a good number of them here, but it's not. You can easily go a couple of days without seeing a black person, depending upon where you live. You know, that
Okay.
plays a huge part of it as well. I can't even speak as to where would most of us live. I would say that my guess is the majority of black folk that live here, they're married to someone who's Japanese or had a kid with someone who's Japanese. But it took like I said, a year. But when I lived on the countryside in Gifu, of course, everywhere I went, people looking. Believe it or not, there's a lot of people here who've never been around a black person here.
Okay.
So when they see you, it's like, oh wow, you know. And here, there's a certain pride that the Japanese have, just as any other homogenous group. You know, it's like they're very proud of being Japanese, but you have groups where you have one group where they're afraid that the infusion of foreigners would dilute their traditions.
Right.
But then you also have a huge group that are so welcoming. And so, yeah, I've experienced kids who would rub my skin to see like if it's gonna rub off, like because they've never been around a black person.
Right.
But when I've gone out, I mean, really, I've just had nothing but pleasant times, and I was one to go out. I go out. I go out. I socialize. I mingle. I eat. I do that, you know. And but I am aware that there are others who have stories where they've been discriminated against and they weren't allowed access to certain places. I don't think it's as prolific. It's definitely not the same as home. Home is a way different story with it. Because from my experience, when you meet, the minute someone gets comfortable with you, it's almost everyone that's attached to them. They're comfortable too. And it's just a lack of exposure for a lot of them. Oftentimes they want to communicate with you. They want to talk to you, but a lot of them do not know English. More of them are just not confident in the English that they've learned. And because they're very, very afraid of making a mistake, it's just more comfortable for them to just look than to actually step out and speak. But if you can speak Japanese, or you know, if you can speak Japanese and you can pose yourself a certain way non-verbally, the wall of shyness can come down pretty decently and all. So
Today is a great day to start your own podcast. Whether you're looking for a new marketing channel, have a message you want to share with the world, or just think it would be fun to have your own talk show, podcasting is an easy, inexpensive, and fun way to expand your reach online. Buzzsprout is hands down the easiest and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. Your show can be online and listed in all the major podcast directories. like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google products, and more within minutes of finishing your recording. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and the team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. Join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Let's create something together. Follow the link in the show notes and let Buzzsprout know that we sent you, and that will get you a $20 Amazon gift card if you sign up for a paid plan and help support our show. Thank you very much, and let's be great podcasting together. Peace. Malik's First Job, Financial Principles for Teens, is an excellent resource to get your children started on understanding the basics of financial literacy. This book, which is set in Brownsville, Brooklyn, about a young man who gets his first job and then shortly thereafter sits down with his dad to learn how to manage his money. There are several topics that are covered within this work, such as paying yourself first, disciplining your spending, knowing the difference between an asset and a liability, creating multiple sources of income, as well as the importance of being charitable. So again, if you want to get your children started on understanding finance and becoming responsible adults, we highly recommend that you purchase the book, Malik's First Job, Financial Principles for Teens. So please visit maliksfirstjob.com to get more information. Peace.
I get out, I go out. Oftentimes, my friends, my foreign friends here, they often say, "Oh, I don't know how you was able to go into this place, go there, and you had no hard times, no problems, no nothing." You know, I've been very blessed and lucky with that. And oftentimes, let's put it this way: there are places I know I can go where there's not but foreigners, and you'll have a great time. It's nicely mixed, foreign and Japanese. But yet, there's many a times I'm going somewhere, or the place that I'm going to, I'm the only black person there.
Okay.
But I still feel very comfortable. You know, people try to come up and engage and talk with me. I've been really lucky with the friendships and the relationships I've been able to have here with folk. It's really been superb. So I'm one of those that I'm aware of the horror stories, but I can't speak from that because it's just not what I've seen. You know.
Right. Now I know earlier on you mentioned that when you went over there the first time that you fell in love with the food, right? So, so what are like the meals normally like over there? I know it's not like when you go back home and you go to Sylvia's or Willie Burgers or wherever, So what is like the normal cuisine over there in Japan?
So, as far as meats is concerned, they do beef, they do pork, they do chicken. You'll find plenty of dishes with that. Fish is huge here. But you almost any dish you can think of is served with rice.
Okay.
So that, so it's very common to eat rice almost anywhere you can go. But there's a lot of the dishes have vegetables in it,
Okay.
And so there is a variety of dishes that's seafood based, pork based. And one thing I will say, when I visited here for those 2 weeks, I didn't want to know what I was eating because I was afraid if I found out what it was, that I was like, yeah, I'm not going to eat it. But I knew when I came to visit, it's like, look, I don't know if I may come back here. So I don't want that to hold me back, and, so I, squid, octopus dishes. I say one of my favorite dishes, which was shocking when I found out what it was eating eel. Now,
Veal
it doesn't look like eel.
or eel.
It
Okay.
doesn't look like it at all. It looks like it's actually chicken. Or, because there's a certain sauce that they put on it. So it can look like either chicken or it can look like a fish. But
Okay.
it doesn't look like what you would think it is. But the taste of it is extraordinarily it's mind blowing. But if you tell somebody, hey, that's cooked eel,
Right.
off the break, someone's gonna be like, yeah, I'm not doing that.
Right.
But
That's me. That's me. I'm like, nah, I'm good.
but it's um they so just about everybody back home has had cup of noodles, or you've had the ramen packets,
Right.
with the hot water and all. To eat that here, it's a completely different. It's a
Okay.
much more enriching experience. The sushi back home versus the sushi here, it
Right.
doesn't even register. It's like it's just it doesn't match.
Okay.
Most of the food here is fresh. So fresh that it's like, back home, we could put stuff in the freezer or have leftovers that could last a week or two, a lot longer.
Yeah.
Here, 2-3 days, and that's it. You know.
Wow.
Um,
I'm sure it doesn't have like
so
all the preservatives and stuff that's in it. So.
that plays a big part of it, and I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
The food here isn't inundated with so many chemicals.
Right.
There are some products here that do have GMO, but not in most of the restaurants that you go into here. That
Okay.
hasn't seeped into, as far as I know, that
Right.
hasn't. It's not as prevalent as it is back home.
Right.
Where you really have to stay on top of stuff to know what it is that you're eating. Um, and I've had roughly 10 friends from the States come and visit me here.
Mm-hmm.
And outside of them saying how beautiful it was, how clean it was, um, and how relaxed and chill it is, which if you ask me a certain question, I can dive into that really, really good. Like the food, everybody was talking about the food, how good it was.
Okay.
And you do have, like, there's McDonald's here, there's Burger King here, there's Pizza Hut here, there's Domino's here. So you have certain fast food chains that's from home that's here,
Mm-hmm.
but the McDonald's tastes better here.
Right.
The Domino's is everything that's from back home that's here is better. It
Right.
just tastes better. And you can feel like it's better because it's not blowing you up, as it would back home.
Right.
You're not as inflamed. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, food is,
Wow.
yes.
Right. So do they have like any soul food restaurants over there? Like, if you wanted to get some, some fried chicken and I don't even want to say fried chicken like that, but if you want to get some
Right.
soul food.
There isn't. So I've heard that there's a couple of soul food places in Tokyo,
Okay.
but there isn't any soul food spots here.
Okay.
Um,
Where you are.
they're big on fried chicken. You can go
Okay.
anywhere and get fried chicken.
Okay.
Um, but and the fried chicken here is pretty good too.
Okay.
Really good. But
Right.
traditional soul food, mm-mm. Um, and I haven't been able to go to Tokyo to experience those restaurants to see what it's
Mm-hmm.
like. Because a lot of times too is you'll have some Japanese folk that'll go to the States. They lived in a particular area, loved the food, whatever, and came back to Japan and had a Japanese spin to it,
Okay.
But as far as soul food, no. But
Okay.
there's a huge love and admiration for us that's here. There are communities that got huge love for us, and like I said, Bunkerman,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, and so yeah, but soul food, nah. But a lot of Indian restaurants, people from Nepal, a lot of
Okay.
Nepalese restaurants, um, the Nepalese, Chinese, of course, Indian, uh, Brazilian. There's a
Mm.
there's a huge community of Brazilians that live here.
Wow.
Huge. So you will, um, there's places you can go to experience foods that's native from Brazil.
Oh, wow.
Outstanding. You know what I mean? Really good.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a wide range of foods that's here that you can explore that's not native to Japan, but the Japanese food here is pretty good.
That's
You
what's
know?
up. That's what's up.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
So let's jump into like the education piece. Now I know you said
Mhm.
you're teaching, here in the States, and then now you're teaching there in Japan. Um, so what does your job entail there? I think you
Okay.
mentioned like you work with preschool children.
Yeah. So
Okay.
my particular school, we kids start at roughly 2 years old,
Okay.
and they go to about 6 years old. So when they graduate from my school,
Hmm.
they're going into first grade.
Okay.
Um, so and it's an all English school, which means the dominant language that's spoken is English.
Okay.
Now you have foreigners, such as myself, that'll teach the English, but we have Japanese staff that will help bridge the language. You know, they do a really, like, they all speak English. They all speak very fluently in English, and
Hmm.
so they're able to translate
Okay.
for the kids and for the parents. And
Okay.
so um, I don't. Well, officially, my work time starts at 9 and it
Hmm.
ends at 6. Um, I have a class that I teach from basically 10 to about, let's just say, 3:30.
Okay.
Get a break, and then from 4:30 to 6, kids who have graduated from my school,
Hmm.
they uh, they come back to the school to get more English lessons,
Okay.
and so do more studying. And so um, me being there for 8 years, my first class, I think now they're either they're entering junior high.
Okay.
They're entering junior high school, sixth, seventh grade. But you know, by the time the kids leave my school and go on to first grade, very outgoing, not as shy as many other kids. That I would say the most common behavior is just extreme shyness. Most of my kids are not that shy anymore.
Right.
They totally understand English, what's being said to them. Um, they can speak. It's usually the kind of thing where if they left my school to go to the States and spend 3 months, fluent,
Okay.
completely fluent, you know. So, um, but yeah, my work day is pretty much 9 to 6, and I
Okay.
work Monday through Friday. So There's a couple of Saturdays that I work in a year, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm just lucky enough that my particular job, I'm Monday through Friday. I know
Okay.
many others that do, they work on the weekends.
Right.
They don't get the weekends off, or they only get Sunday off. So,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And what would be like the biggest difference between like teaching, like I guess students here in the States versus students there in Japan? Like, what's some of the key differences that you've seen from your experience?
The school day is longer,
Okay.
particularly this is the understanding I've gotten so far because I've only taught preschool.
Mm-hmm.
Once they go into first grade, from first grade through high school, they're so usually there's a school that they mainly go to, but
Mm-hmm.
then after school, they may go to two other schools, and these schools are, to put it plainly, they give you extra lessons in English.
Okay.
So a child could go to school at 8 a.m., but their school day, that's the school they go to plus the supplemental classes they take outside of school,
Mm-hmm.
they may not get home till about 8 o'clock at night.
Wow.
And it's like that from first grade on.
Wow.
So they're used to, kind of like being in a study mindset
Mm-hmm.
for those long hours. And then they come home to then, of course, do their homework and all of that.
Wow.
So there's that compared to what we experience at home.
Right.
Um, Again, with the way that we're brought up, our kids are at home. Our kids more talkative,
Mm-hmm.
you know, more expressive. Kids here, they do talk. It's the way that they do it.
Okay.
That's kind of different. It's it's so common to have kids that will go a whole school day and just not say a word, not really talk at all, or
Right.
talk very minimal. You know,
Okay.
um, and obviously, I think family households play a part in that. So our kids back home are a lot more expressive of things that they like, dislike, and
Okay.
whatnot than I think kids here. Um, and I can really only speak from a preschool standpoint.
Right.
And my school, and by the way, my school is not common, I would say. There are other schools that do teach all day English,
Mm-hmm.
but often you'll have preschools where the majority of the day is Japanese, but they might have an hour's worth of English. But
Okay.
when they get to, I'm not sure if it's first grade or third grade, at some point in their elementary schools, once they hit elementary school, the amount of time of English lessons gets broadened
Okay.
as they go up in grade. So I would say the biggest difference is, like I said, the school day for the child, um, and everything else is very cultural based, which
Okay.
goes into the way that they communicate and how they communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I will say this: bullying is the big thing here, believe it or not.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, it's a big thing here, and this So in speaking about the bullying, there's no violence that takes place
Okay.
here. None.
Okay.
None. Like, the bullying is mostly words. You're not
Okay.
gonna really have there's not a lot of fist fighting
Okay.
that takes place here, let alone, you know, dealing with knives and guns and
Right.
stuff like that. None of that. Like,
Right.
and I can get into that really well outside of school, but you don't have that in the schools whatsoever.
Okay.
Many of the schools, I believe, once they go to first grade, regardless of the school that they go to, they're all wearing uniforms. Like how
Hmm.
we would in the city, it's like
Right.
you go to public school, you go to Catholic school, you go to private school. And if you go to Catholic school, you're wearing a uniform.
Right.
Well, all the schools here, they all wearing uniforms once
Okay.
you go into first grade, I believe. Um, which was an eye opener because I didn't know that was such a thing here, you know.
Okay.
But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. 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 So now I know again you being an avid basketball player. Again, last time I saw you, have you had a chance to go out and and bring Rucker Park to Japan?
I played ball a couple of times here in the parks.
Okay.
It's one of those things where for any athlete, particularly those who have played basketball, it's like, oh, I can remember when I was in shape, and if I was, I'd kill him out here. But you know, they you the kids here that play, okay, so there's a wide range of sports that they enjoy. Baseball is huge here.
Okay.
Soccer is huge here. Rugby is huge here.
Oh wow.
Yeah, huge, huge. Um, Matter of fact, you go to any bar, you're likely to see either baseball, soccer, or rugby.
Mm.
You know,
Okay.
will you see basketball? Yeah, but not as much. You know,
Okay.
um, but the game, the way from from my little bit of playing here, it's not as physical.
Okay.
They, you know, they're into the jumpers, taking jump shots quite a bit.
Right.
Um, they got certain aspects of the game down, but back home as a young athlete, we get taught how to think the game. Like, we
Hmm.
don't just get taught the fundamentals on how to play. We get
Right.
taught how to think the game.
Hmm.
I'm not sure that is being taught, at least with basketball. I
Okay.
can't say for baseball. I can't say for soccer and rugby. I cannot say because I haven't been exposed to it in that way to know. But um, but kids, as far as when they go into schools, I think at some point they get to pick hobbies.
Okay.
Um, and so some will go into, you know, soccer, baseball, rugby, basketball, volleyball. Uh, some might choose a martial art.
Hmm.
Um, um, yeah, or other types of hobbies. That's non-sport related. But
Okay.
um, yeah. So as far as me being able to show a couple of things, it's one of those things where it's like I should give it up, hang it up completely. But you know, you're looking at kids where it's like, Yeah. If any kid, you being from Brooklyn and whatnot, and me being from Manhattan, growing up in Harlem and in the Upper West Side, like, you take any kid who's 12, 13, 14 years old, you bring them out here, they're destroying it.
Mm-hmm.
They're destroying it. It's not even close. Boy or girl, they're killing it. You know. But one thing I will say with the kids out here, when they find something that they into, they are dedicated. They're dedicated. You know, they're watching it on TV. They're buying the gear. They are, they spend any little extra time they have to dedicate it to that thing that they're into. So that's something that I can say that I've noticed. You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what would you say is like the biggest lesson that you've learned through your whole experience being there?
There are places on this planet that we can go to. We don't have to worry about the violence at all. When I say for Japanese, their biggest concern is the Yakuza.
Is the what?
Right? Yakuza, which is the Japanese mafia. I have seen those individuals because there's a way that they dress and there's certain locations that they be at. I've seen them.
Mm-hmm.
You don't bother them, they don't bother you. But for Japanese people, I think it's a whole different feel. I haven't seen one fist fight from involving two Japanese people. The fist fight I've seen has been amongst foreigners, but in the 8 years I've been here, and this is me being out at all different times of hours in the evening.
Right.
Maybe I've seen 3 fist fights. I mean, it is extremely safe here.
Okay.
Like, you wouldn't believe. So knowing that there's that aspect, that there's places that we can go and not really have to worry about it like that. Okay. That was an eye-opener. I'm gonna say this, and I am mindful that there's others who've had different experiences. Racism is different. It's a little different. Primarily here, you're dealing with, are you Japanese or are you not? It's either you foreign or you Japanese. And that's it. What I find, the folk that tend to have it the roughest is those who are half Japanese and half black, who grow up here. All they know is Japan. They speak Japanese fluently, but they're just half. There's a story there to explore, because for many Japanese, it's like Japanese looks a certain way.
Right.
And so when they see something that don't necessarily fit that look, the idea of automatically thinking and treating you as if you're Japanese versus foreign, it's different. And it's very challenging on those individuals that are half here. But like, I don't have to worry about the cops.
Okay.
Peace, what's going on? Have you ever wanted to get involved in real estate wholesaling, but just didn't know how? Well, my good friend Chris Jefferson has a whole course that he offers that teaches you all the ins and outs of real estate wholesaling. Look below in the show notes, you'll see a link that you can click on where you can get more information about the course in which he offers. Show you how to get started in real estate wholesaling, how to get leads, how to promote yourself online. So definitely look below in the show notes, click on the link, get more information, and learn how to build your business. All right? Take care. Peace. Peace, peace, peace. What's going on? This is Kerwin Phillip from the Malik's First Job Podcast. Just a quick reminder, hit that subscribe button below and that notification bell. That way you never miss an episode when it drops. All right? Thank you all for supporting, and let's jump back into the conversation. Peace.
Have I been stopped by the cops? Yeah. But it's usually, excuse me, sir, I'm sorry to bother you. May I see your what they call your gaijin card, which is basically like the card to say that, you're supposed to be here and whatnot, like your working visa. Because there's people here that will overstay their visa, so there's the crackdown in that. But I am aware, and to keep it more buck, when I lived countryside, I don't think I was stopped once by a cop. When I moved to the city, there was a period where I was stopped a whole lot more frequently. Like, it was almost like once every 3 months over the course of, let's say, 2 seasons, or maybe even more than that. But the minute that they, from my experience, the minute that they know who you are, they'll wave at you, drive by, or they'll bow, and that's it. So you're not dealing with reckless talk being thrown at you, reckless treatment. There are places that if you go out in the evening time, there are certain places that's like, they'll say no foreigners, but it's not against this, our color, I'm not gonna be ignorant to say it doesn't exist. It's just that I haven't experienced it.
Right.
There are stories that I've heard, and there are individuals that I know that experience a little differently. But for the most part, for myself and for a lot of others that I know, it's nothing like what's like at home. Nothing like it. So to know that, okay, here's a place, I don't have to worry about violence like that. And again, and not to sound stupid, but it's like, us coming from the city, when you grow up in that environment, you kind of you're like, hey, if something's ready to pop off, we're ready to handle that.
Right.
If need be. But it's nice to know it doesn't always have to be that, and it doesn't have to always be on that,
Right.
So that and to see, to not have to deal with certain racial issues here like that. It's very refreshing, because if one exists, there's other places that we can go to and not have to experience that. It's just that we have to go out there and see it.
Right. Right.
You just have to experience it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what message would you have? You want to say something else?
I was just gonna say, for the most part, people are very welcoming here. They're happy for the most part to see foreigners here, and very polite.
Okay.
Very polite. Very polite. And so, that was the other thing I was just gonna say.
Okay. So what message would you have to someone who's thinking about, should I go overseas, and should I try this? Should I try that? Should I go here? I've never been there before. I don't know. What message would you have that person is kind of like on the fence, or that young person? Let's say that younger you, the 15, 16-year-old O'Neal. Like, what message would you tell that person?
15, 16-year-old me would be like, look, if you can't make it in the NBA, you can definitely play overseas. You can play overseas and make a really nice living for yourself, which I think so many of us do not know. The athletes, we do not know that. We do not consider that. We may not even know anyone that has played overseas, but serious talk, if we knew that, and you get taken care of, you can make nice salary, you get treated royally, you know? So that's what I was, because the 15, 16-year-old me was so into sports, and that was just my thing. There's a whole other side to this conversation that I can have with you off camera to dig a little bit deeper than this, than the surface. But I would tell all of us, especially, and for anyone, for us growing up in the city, so many of us get stuck on our block and don't know what it is to get off the block. Well, you know what? The US is a block too. And we need to venture out, and see what this world is all about. We need to, I've met so many friends who they were taught that part back in high school and in college, where they did international travel while in college, did an exchange program. And I didn't even hear that until I done met people in my 30s who talked about that. So for younger folk and for older, please get your visa, get your coins together, travel outside the US. Now, it's a great first step. Hey, my first time out of the country was to the Caribbean. Fantastic. But all it takes is that one trip outside that'll get the machine running.
Right.
And me coming here made me want to visit. I want to go to Australia. I want to go to New Zealand. I want to go to I want to go to the motherland.
Right.
And explore that to the fullest. And I know that I'm going to do that because, COVID is now in a certain place where I think travel will be on a huge upkick in the next year, within the next year. So please, 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 if there's opportunities to exchange opportunities for you, whether it be in high school or in college, take them on. Take them on. Because it's a huge world out here, and home will always be home, and I got love for home. But it's nice to know there's places out here in this world that we can go to, and there's love for us too. The love is a little different, but the love is still love, and we gotta get out of our neighborhoods, and we also gotta step outside our own country to get a look at, have just a more broader view of what life is, And so I never thought that I would be here this long, but I'm not upset that I'm here this long. It's actually made me think about, venturing off to different parts of the motherland. It's also made me think about South America, just to explore more, because all it takes is one time. And I think for anybody who has been outside the States, been outside North America, they totally understand what I'm saying. All it takes is one trip outside, and that's it. Your mind is just open.
Yeah.
It's just like a kid who, whether they're from East New York, Brownsville, Bed-Stuy, or from Harlem, LES, or Astoria, or South Jamaica, Queens. The minute you step outside your neighborhood, oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
And that's all it takes.
It's crazy. I remember, growing up, like, let's say a cat, from Brownsville, you got people who stay within their neighborhoods.
Right.
And going from Brooklyn to Harlem was a big thing. Like, yo, are you going uptown? Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Like, in that mindset, that was like going from the U.S. to Japan, going from
Right.
Brooklyn to Harlem,
Right.
and just being up there, because, people don't realize, like, people outside New York don't realize about the 5 boroughs, how each borough is its own culture. At least at that time.
Indeed.
Like, you could look at somebody and be like, oh, that dude's from Harlem, or that dude's from the Bronx. Just by how they look and how they present themselves.
Yeah.
And again, traveling from one area to the next was like a big thing, because again, people didn't want to leave that block. Because that block was their work. They knew what would happen in their neighborhood. I don't know what's going to happen if I get on that train and go uptown. I don't know nobody up there. If something pop off, I'm a long way from home.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you kind of stay within your neighborhood. But again, on the global, the bigger picture, like the analogy that you made, that like, America is a block, America is a neighborhood, and we need to go and venture out and get outside that particular neighborhood and see what else is out there. I remember in high school, they had the international trips, and my mother made me go to like, they had a trip to France and England. That my mother was like, no, you going. And I'm like, I ain't trying to go. No, I'm getting your passport. You going and you go see something different.
Right.
And at the time I was a little apprehensive, but years later, I appreciate the fact that I was able to go and see, different things. Like, people talk about, like, the Mona Lisa. I've seen the Mona Lisa face to face. I've seen, like, the British Museum. I've seen the Eiffel Tower. The different castles and stuff that throughout Europe. I've seen it because I've been there.
Right.
And I can come back and tell the story.
Right.
About what it is. So, like you said, it's very important to, for at least us to get a chance to see different things and venture out and see the world. It's a big place.
Absolutely. That might be my biggest message, just because there's always something going on at home, whether it be in your own household or in your neighborhood or in your surrounding areas, that can keep you there. But I'm so thankful that I mean, it's a 12, 13, 14-hour flight to get out here. So to take that step was huge. But, once your mind is opened up like that, there's no turning back.
Exactly.
There's no turning back. And so we all, as a people, and just in general, we all need to experience that and know what that is. Because then, usually, like, for instance, you would feel comfortable. Like, for instance, me being from Harlem, and I gotta show love to the Upper West Side, because it's the other area that I was raised in.
Right.
My father worked in Brooklyn, in Parks and Rec, so he made sure. Oh, no. Yeah, y'all gonna be where you live, but I need to bring you over here. I need you to see more of the city. I need you to see more of that and experience that and know how to move and shake with that. So, but it's where I wanted to get to is that if you knew someone that live in in another neighborhood, it made you feel more comfortable to go there.
Yeah.
And so many of us is on that as adults. Well, hey, if you over here, I've always thought about Japan. Yeah, let me come out here and visit you because I know I get a chance to see it, but I know somebody else is there that can hold me down.
Exactly.
That's always helpful.
Mm-hmm.
It's a blessing when you have that. But even if you don't, take that step, take that leap. Take that leap. And plus, with the way that the world is so small, you got so many communities of us that are willing to support each other and share notes.
Yeah.
Put you up on some game that you can pretty much go anywhere in this world and have a leg up on knowing how to move, how to shape,
Right.
and so we got to do it. We got to do it. And again, there's so many other places around this world that got love for us. You just gotta go out there and experience and just gotta go out there and experience it and see it.
Yeah.
Because once you see it, then you can speak on it.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So.
All right. Cool. So I'm gonna wrap it up, man. I know you got to go to work in the morning. It's like It's like a 13-hour difference, So, like I said, man, I appreciate you taking the time, to kind of share your story, let people know, what you're doing and, what's going on over there in Japan, right? So for folks that may
Kerwin,
want to reach out to
I
you,
thank you so much. Huh?
I said, I appreciate you as well. Appreciate you, man. Thanks
I
for
thank you
taking the
so
time.
much for this, man. I'm so happy for what you got going on and everything. It's an honor to be a part of this. Not to mention just the fact of just being reconnected with my brother.
No doubt.
Such a solid dude in high school, man. Just, you know what I mean? Like, everybody had love for you, and it wasn't just to show love because it's one of our own, but it's like, the energy that you gave out was so positive and so welcoming, even though everybody knew, just off your physical stature, don't play games. You know what I mean? Bro will show you love, but don't play games. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm so happy to be reconnected with you. And again, this has been an honor. And so I thank you, and much more success to you and your family and everything and all your endeavors.
I appreciate you, man. Likewise.
Yeah, man.
So for folks that may want to reach out to you, man, how can they get in contact with you online?
So on Instagram, it's O'Neal_Sensei. Facebook, you can find me. My name is O'Neal Irvin on Facebook, so you can find me that way. I do look forward to having a more broader imprint on social media, and when I do, I'd definitely be glad to share that with you. And
Sir.
I would, and if the opportunity were to come, I would love to come back on your show and discuss other things such as, entrepreneurship or whatever, because I've definitely had my hands in some things and I can speak on that as well.
Oh yeah. I know. I seen the pictures with Russell Simmons and all that. So from back in the day. so I know I ain't built on it, but I know you out. You out there working.
Yeah, it was a blessing.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
But
that's how people can reach out, and so salute to you, man, and to your family, and again, peace and blessings, bro.
Yes, sir. Likewise, man. So again, thanks everyone for tuning in. Like I said, sometime in the future we can bring my brother O'Neal back on. We're gonna build on some other things. But like I said, just like we said from this episode, man, don't be scared to venture off off your block, off your neighborhood, out the country, man. If you look at a globe
Indeed.
and you look at where you at, there's a whole big plan for you to explore. Definitely get that passport and get them stamps.
Indeed.
Travel.
Indeed.
All right. So thanks for tuning in for the Malik's First Job podcast. I'll see y'all next week. Peace.
Generational wealth.